Hi guys, today I would like to talk about an argument that is very personal and kinda scary. Because it sends me back to a period in my life in which I screwed up and went in a very dark place. And the funny thing is that it's a very recent period. So it's a very fresh wound for me. Today we talk about debt. Welcome, my name is Giuseppe and I'm a finance graduate, former financial analyst and money nerd. And today I want to share my experience in owning debt, how I ended up in this situation like an idiot, how I exited from such a swamp, what can you do about it if you are in a similar situation, and how to prevent this from happening again. So without further ado, let's get started. How I ended up in debt. So many people end up in debt due to car loans, student loans or credit cards. So they end up in debt essentially because they overspend compared to their income. But not me. I ended up in debt because I mismanaged my finances very badly. A rookie mistake. But I guess you have to make the mistake to learn a lesson, don't you? Let's take some steps back in 2020, right when the pandemic started. I was working full-time while being a student, in a brokerage job that was paying me 100% in commissions. The lockdown started and the entire financial system froze for months, and I've been able to source many important transactions in that period and made a good chunk of money. In 2021, I get paid from these transactions, and since I had to open a VAT for this, I also had to pay taxes on that income myself. Now, what happened? I was supposed to pay in June 2022 the taxes over my income in 2021. But the stock market was going great in 2021. So I decided to invest all the money I had, thinking that nothing bad would ever happen. Well, rookie mistake here. Because at the beginning of 2022, the stock market began to crash and my portfolio went in red. And so I was left with something like 20,000 euro of tax debt with the Italian tax agency. Now, this was fiscal debt that I was holding, so the interest rate was not very high. Less than 4%. But as a person that has never been in debt, owning something like 20,000 euros was very scary, especially while watching my portfolio halving. So in the same period, I had to work at my main job, study for university and find a solution for this mess. As always, what are you gonna do about it? First thing first, plan. Debt is among the least liked things to talk about. That's why it's also so hard to extinguish. If you find yourself in the position of owning money to someone else, let it be a bank, a credit card company or the Italian tax agency, the first thing that you should do is to sit down and list all your balances and their respective interest rates. After this, you have to decide how you're gonna pay your balances. And there are two main methods. The avalanche method that consists in starting to pay off your debt with the highest interest rate first and then move into the ones with the lowest interest rate and make minimum payments over the other balances. This method makes more sense mathematically speaking, and you're gonna pay less over the long run. The problem is that Harvard Business Review and Northwestern University both made some research about the likelihood of success with this method, and they found out that it's not very high. Reason being that if you start from a big fat balance with a very high interest rate, that is gonna really take you a long time to pay off and you will lose momentum and motivation very quickly. That is why many people suggest another method, that is the snowball method, that consists in paying off your debt starting from the one with the smallest balance. In this way, anytime you extinguish a balance, you unlock more firepower to attack the next one. And at the same time, you make minimum payments over the other balances. Why does this work better statistically speaking? Well, it's all about positive reinforcement and dopamine. This method gives you some very quick wins early in the line, helping you to stay on track and keeping your morale high. And that makes a ton of difference whenever making a life-changing choice, such as paying off debt. In this case though, I had just one big balance of 20,000 euro. So I was in a much better position compared to many people that instead have a long list of debts to work with. I didn't have to plan so much, so I went straight into the next point. That is, increase your disposable income. Yeah, that's it. After planning what you have to pay first, your next step should be to increase your disposable income. First, you have to understand what are your baseline costs compared to your income, and also understand what can you do about it. I'll tell you, paying off debt is not a nice thing, nor it is enjoyable. You will have to review your life expenses and your lifestyle. As a consequence, you have to accept that you screwed this up and take accountability of the consequences. So sit down, understand your monthly expenses, and cut everything that is not necessary or discretionary. and accept a more modest lifestyle. You can increase your disposable income by cutting your expenses or increasing your income. So if necessary, consider taking a second part-time job or doing some freelancing on the side. I did the second, and this helped me having a steadier and higher income. And with that, I was able to pay your debt first. You might have heard of the phrase pay yourself first in the realm of personal finance. Well, in this case, you screwed up. So you do not deserve to be paid, and you should pay your creditors first. Every time you receive your income, put aside a part that you plan to use to pay that chunk of your debt for that month, and then proceed to pay all your expenses. Obviously, this also assumes that you're able to cover your basic need after putting aside this amount of money. If this is not feasible, go back to step 2. Following these steps, I decided to pay off my debt in 20 months by setting aside 1,000 euros per month. And then on the 14th month, I received a lump sum from my main job that allowed me to close the balance. That is to say that in that period, I cut my expenses to the bone. And to do so, you might also decide to maybe go back to live with your parents, especially if you're still in your 20s, to gain some momentum and play on offense for 1 year or 2. You might miss some job opportunities, you might miss some fun in the big city, and you will watch your peers move on while you're stuck in your parents' basement eating rice and beans. But it is what it is. You have to take ownership and make some sacrifices. How to prevent this from happening again? Well, since this episode, I had 2 iron rules that I use with money. The first one is simply do not invest any capital that you know you're gonna need in the next 3 years. Let this for taxes, planned expenses or whatever. If you know you have an expense in the next 3 years, you should put those money aside into a deposit account without any lockup period. I use Trade Republic for this, and you can find the link down below. The second rule is to set aside some money for emergencies. Usually this needs to be at least 3 months of basic expenses covered, and they can go up to 12 months based on how risky your job position is. This will give you a ton of confidence knowing that even if you lose your job, you still have a cushion. In the end, understand that paying off debt is no fun. You will have to fight just to stay afloat, but it's gonna be necessary because this fight will give you back your peace of mind. So guys, as always, thank you for watching. I hope you liked the video, and so please leave a like and subscribe. And you might also be interested in understanding how I would invest my first 1,000 euros. And you can find it here. Bye!